Hello, this is Ellen Madono, and I'm speaking to you from Kamakura. We just moved to this city that's about an hour from Tokyo, and we just love it. It's such a beautiful place. Today, I'm going to be talking about a topic that's much simpler than the previous video. It's how to use the software for polarity analysis. This is part of a 4-part series. First I introduced it, and then I talked about how it works, what the concepts are behind it. This was a fairly difficult video, and I encouraged you to go on to this video if you find this difficult and not worry too much about the second video. But I will be explaining things that have some relationship to understanding what is in the second video, and I think as you use the software you'll actually understand how it works also. I'm going to review this. I'd like you to press the space key whenever you want to stop, and don't worry about having to finish the whole video. Use it at your own convenience. Add subtitles if they help you. Also, consider adding a translation if English is not your first language. The translation will appear here. Now this is about the software, so you can watch this video without registering for the software, but it is free to totally to use. So if you have a need right now, it's worthwhile just even trying it. It's not very difficult, and it's not very expensive if you decide to try using it for a longer time. I'm going to start by telling you the setup for the software, how to set up your case for when you're using the software, and then I'll go through how to take a case in terms of the software. Now when you open the window, if you've got a wide screen open on your computer, then 2 parts of the window will show up. When you open it up, it will have, on one side, it'll have a list of all the cases you've taken, and on the other side, it will have the specific case that you want to do this time. So there are 2 parts to the window. If you open up a narrow window, then the 2 parts of the case will appear vertically. I wasted a couple days thinking my program was broken because I couldn't find this part of the window. And actually it was just all I had to do was scroll down. Don't make that mistake. In this case, the case lists is above, and below are the patient's name and all the things having to do with the consultation of that particular patient. So you have to start by first filling in the patient's name. You start a new consultation. So you click on new patient, start a consultation, and fill in all the aspects of the patient. And anytime you want to go back and edit that, you can edit it from here. Then finally you'll get the patient, and you can put in some notes about what the case is about, and then click here and you'll get the polar analysis screen. It's an entirely different screen that you'll get. If you don't have a case list yet now, you just have a new patient. If you have patients before, then you can just click on your old patient and start a new consultation. Once you open up the polarity analysis window, it's set so it shows you the number of hits when you do your repertorization. You don't want these hits or the sums. You want the polarity analysis. This is going to be what you're going to use to find the remedy. Here you can see I've hidden the patient's name, and you can do that if you're doing a video like I'm doing right now. And once you've got the case taken, you'll want to export it to a spreadsheet on your computer, and also you want to save and return. So this exporting I find to be very useful. I use various repertories and keep lots of different notes, so I keep all the notes on the patient in one folder, and I want to export this rather than keep it on the internet. So no matter what happens to the internet, my case is available for me to see. Be sure you do this save and return. I have done things like turned off the computer and have not saved and returned, and then I have to redo the case. That's the sort of thing you want to avoid doing. This button over here is to open up two windows, so it looks like this. Okay, so you have, on this side you have the repertory, and on this side you have the repertorization, or the results from the symptoms that you chose here. It's interesting, he calls them symptoms, but I just taught you the term rubric. This is the place where the rubrics are. That would be the homeopath's way of saying that. I'm not sure why he calls them symptoms. The repertory is on this side, and the results from the repertorization is on this side. And you can click this on and off to make this window very wide. If you want to see more of the remedies that come up from your repertorization. If we look at the repertorization window, you have both the looking for symptoms, and you have the checklists, and you have an ADHD column here. I'm not going to go into this at all, and the symptoms we'll talk about a little bit, but it's this checklist mainly that you are going to be using, because these are the most reliable symptoms in the Bowenhausen pocket, in the repertory that he's using. So you can scroll here, there's a scroll here, you can scroll down and see all of the symptoms. It's a very short list. It's amazing how short it is. I'm going to go through this in the order of an actual interview. So we set up the program so that you can use it, and next we're going to go through the interview process. I think about interviewing, or the patient interaction, in 4 parts. The pre-interview is where you're first speaking to the patient, and you're first setting up an appointment and making all kinds of small decisions about how to work with this person. Possibly the patient will start telling you about his chief complaint. When I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, oh, when is this analysis going to be? Where is it going to be on the patient's timeline? Often the patient will contact you telling you their chief complaint, and they want to know whether you can help them with their chief complaint. What I'm thinking is, what time in the timeline, how long is their timeline? Do they have a long development to their problem? Is there a crisis that they've had recently that makes them think that they could use homeopathy? And while you're doing this telephone talk, usually, you're finding out what kind of person this is, what his demands are, and what his needs are. You can also introduce the questionnaire. But I find these days that people just don't know what a questionnaire is anyway, and it just confuses things. So I don't even mention the questionnaire. But once I start doing the questionnaire, then this is the first concern that I will have. I want the patient to understand his timeline. That is, when did the most recent set of symptoms appear in his life? What's the difference between this change that happened and how he is generally, what he's normally like? This is what's going on in my mind during the pre-interview. The next step will be to start filling out the questionnaire, assuming that the patient understands what you're looking for. That is, usually they don't understand, and you have to keep on checking. Is this something that occurred recently? If it's possible, you want to actually nail down an event that happened that made them feel that they were very uncomfortable and they needed help. They needed homeopathy or they needed some kind of help. It's something that really bothered them. Don't leave their timeline too vague, because actually it helps patients also to kind of settle down. Typically people have many, many more complaints than the specific complaint that they're bringing to you. And sometimes during the talk with them, you discover that actually the real complaint isn't the one that they're bringing to you. So this is all a discovery process. You're asking them when it happened, what was going on then at that time, did anything else happen, and is this really what bothers you most, and how does it bother you? You'll keep asking about this because it's very important to be able to identify this place. This simplifies your case taking, and so you're not just asking everything about them. I never would have believed that I could fill out a questionnaire, be talking to someone, and be thinking about the analysis all at the same time. But very soon in this getting used to this software, I began doing that. Dr. Fry told us to do that. And it was easy because of the way the software is set up. This checklist is the main thing that you're filling out. Right now I have the symptoms showing, but I never use that very much. And I know that Dr. Fry does in his the cases in his book. But I found that the checklist has been the most helpful, and that's what at least during the time when I'm working with a patient, that's what I'm looking at. So there isn't very much to cover and not much distraction. This I'm going to just give you a peek at the symptom list just so you can understand the structure of the software and Dr. Fry's research. He has this set up so there's high, medium, and low reliability. This totally reflects the number of times that the symptom was used and was helpful in his cured cases. A symptom that's red like this was not very helpful, even though it has a polar symptom. Something like this, irritability, anger, aggression, this was helpful, so it has a green mark here, and it is a polar symptom. But you see here that most of them are not polar. The symptoms that I chose come actually from this list here, which is partly located here, but this is a much longer list. This is really the list of all of the rubrics in the Bowenhausen repertory. So he's calling them symptoms, but they're really rubrics. You can see here that he is urging us to use only the high reliability symptoms. You would use this symptom list for confirmation. And if you click here on the high symptoms, you're going to get only high reliable symptoms. Generally, even if you're checking to see what Bowenhausen also had in his repertory, you would check this to look for symptoms that have a higher reliability. And you can search for the symptoms here in the search box. In general, I'm looking for a slimmer, easier way to do the analysis. I don't want to be carrying around the entire Bowenhausen repertory in my interview. Even that very slim book becomes more cumbersome than the highly reliable symptoms that Dr. Fry recommends. Really, Hahnemann also told us the golden rule is that less is more reliable. So I click on the checklist when I'm doing an actual interview. It's a very short list. I have it written in big letters. It only covers 4 pages. So it's really very short. I think of the questionnaire as being a guide for me to find the remedy, but it's also a way for me to have lots of space in my interview to be learning more from the patient. You can see this homeopath is being sucked into his computer. He's looking at the computer and not at the patient. To me, this wouldn't be a very good interview style. It's very easy to get overly preoccupied by what is in the repertory. I see the repertory as a way as a kind of a screen to hide behind. So I can relax and look at the patient and really communicate with the patient. To use the questionnaire, there are only really two rules, and generally as I'm asking the questions, I teach this to the patient. The two rules concern the two rules are: you don't really want to use the general symptoms. You definitely want to know the general symptoms from the patient. Is he generally hot? Is he cold? What does he generally like to eat, drink? What kind of, generally does he have irregular stools? Anything that is generally true, you want to know that. And it could be pathological or not pathological. But really what you're going to concentrate on is a point in the past, if possible, in the very recent past, where the patient still clearly remembers the symptoms. And you want to know at that point when there was a change in your symptoms, a change from the general state. What happened? And you constantly be asking him, are you like that normally, or did that happen when something else happened? Is this what bothers you the most? Does it bother you a lot? You're constantly going to be asking little questions like that to try to differentiate between the general symptoms, and you're constantly going to be asking questions like that to find out if there's a difference between that recent past and his general symptoms. Okay? The purpose of the questionnaire is really not to save time. That's not the issue. Actually what happens is you gain time and energy that you can use to really pay attention to the patient himself. And you get all kinds of very juicy information while the patient thinks you're just doing bureaucratic work. And because you're relaxed, they tend to talk. And that gives you a chance to observe them and spend more time really not talking about rubrics, but talking about chit-chat, talking about their lives, how they feel, the things that are important to them. So I used to send the questionnaire in an email. I have it all set up for an email. But I found that most patients didn't really understand how to answer the questionnaire. They didn't understand that I really want something that's in the recent past. They didn't know what their recent past was, or they didn't have a timeline in mind. That's not normal. That's not the way normal people think. So I really emphasize that you don't have to expect that the patient will understand the questionnaire. Just keep checking on when was the time when the big change took place in the recent past. But all that time you're also asking why, what, where. You're also asking about the past that's quite far back. But you're always asking about these questions that have to do with this recent past, and then the patient will fill you in depending on his personality. Some people won't fill you in, and you're very glad in that case that you have a questionnaire, because they're really very closed and won't inform you of anything very much. So you're glad that you have this structure. And you're only asking a simple question: what makes it feel better or worse? patients can relax because you're not prying into their business. You actually are, because you find out a lot from them, but you don't have to work very hard at it. I feel that the questionnaire itself is a lot more structured than an open conversation would be. And people are telling you secrets because they want to get well. But I kind of encourage people to stay with safe topics for them. And I don't require them to take initiative, to work hard on their interview. Just kind of relax. That's kind of my goal. I try to be myself relaxed and have the patient relax. But while you're doing this, you are actually making some decisions, because because the questionnaire is divided into sections having to do with weather, position of the body, movement, eating and drinking, menstruation for women, discharges such as perspiration or stools, or all of the normal things that are asked in homeopathy are asked here. But there is some differentiation that you're going to have, and you really want to figure out which rubric is most appropriate for this patient and which one applies most to that event that happened in the recent past that the patient clearly remembers, hopefully. So, for example, if the patient says that he's sensitive to cold, okay, does that particular symptom, does that aggravate or improve when you get cold? Well, of course it aggravates. Or is it cold in general? Is it the weather that really bothers you, or is it cold in general? Like cold water in a pool, or in a cold room. Would that bother you as much as the weather itself? So you might select both of them, but you would tend to be differentiating that with cold and wet. And how do they feel about warmth? Is it really cold that's the issue, or is it warm that's the issue? So you're asking both questions, and as soon as you click on the button, then it appears here in your analysis side of the screen. So you can immediately begin seeing which remedies are coming up. I don't look at this too much, this side of the screen, until I'm almost done with the interview, because lots of change takes place while you're doing this. Now, just to tell you how this is set up, P means this is a polarity symptom. In the last talk, I described polarity symptoms as being the polar opposites in the symptoms that exist in the repertory. So if cold in general, then the polar opposite would be hot in general here. All of these have a polar opposite because they're taken from this middle part of the repertory. They're taken from this side, the middle section of let me see. Yeah, this checklist here. It's taken from the checklist. Okay, those symptoms are on this side, and they're all green because it's taken from the checklist. It's not taken from the symptom list. And those are all, by definition, all polar symptoms. So you're going to find the same thing on this side. Now, if you want to cross out this rubric, for example, you can just click on the X here and it will cross out. Sometimes you have to scroll up and down here to find it again, but you very quickly memorize all these symptoms because there are very few that you have to think about. And all of them are on the other side here, right? This one here brings up a contraindication, and later on you're going to pay attention to that. The way this screen is, I've taken a picture of the upper part of the screen, and which is the rubrics of the patient, and then the lower part of the screen is the polarity rubrics. And so I wish this screen were set up a little bit different because it's hard to compare between the two. And actually, I'm doing that quite a bit as part of in the next. Actually, I'm doing that quite a bit, and in the next lecture, I'll be showing you how I evaluate my rubrics depending on how the analysis comes out. So you're going to always find these contraindications in the lower part of the screen, and you're going to be wanting to know how important this is to the whole case, because you're thinking about what is central to this case, and that's a detailed discussion that we need to have probably as I'm going over cases. I'm going to make videos of actual cases, and then you'll see why, if the center of the case is misunderstood or misrepresented, then you're going to get the wrong answer. So this is a very key point and can't be totally covered right here. So what I'd like you to do is spend some time playing with the software. On my website, I'm going to put up some copies of cases that were done with this software. You can't just take any case and analyze it using the software, because these particular rubrics that are being used here are not the ones that every case is using. I never paid attention so much to weather and sensitivity to cold and hot and that kind of thing. I never paid attention to modalities in exactly the same way that it's done here. Furthermore, these particular symptoms are particular to the Bowenhausen repertory, and then furthermore to the research that Hahnemann and furthermore particular to the research that Dr. Fry has done. So I'm going to put up cases that you can do using to try out the software and see if you can manipulate it. It's not very difficult to do. And some of these cases are in this book here. And I would say that these cases are very good because they illustrate a wide range of situations. He even has a case in here where the symptoms are mainly mental symptoms. And you can see what his strategy is for those different kinds of cases. So I highly recommend that you eventually buy this book. But I'll put up the cases for you to try out the software and see if you can use it. And in the next video, I'll be showing you how I think about case analysis and how I kind of play with the symptoms which ones I'm really going to use, given that some of them have these contraindications. Okay. And I'm going to emphasize that I'm really hoping that beginners will start using polarity analysis, and students will start using polarity analysis early in their studies, because what this program does is makes possible success very early in your case-taking life. And small wins are a great source of confidence and also a great source of information about the nature of homeopathy, remedies, case taking. You can learn a lot by having some good results. And I hope that you will share this with other homeopaths and other students, and we can together develop more reliable methods to find curative remedies. My belief is that if people knew that their health was within their own power, then they wouldn't be so willing to give it up to medications and all kinds of medical procedures that are really taking away the freedom of individuals in handling their own lives. So I'm hoping that you will share this with others. And this is a video that's controlled by the bots, and so I'm hoping that you will also click on the subscribe screen and do whatever you can to share in this highly internet-centered world that we live in. Okay. So this has been Ellen Madono, and I'm coming to you from Kamakura, which is about an hour away from Tokyo. And I really enjoyed sharing this with you, and I hope you will add comments and tell me what you would like to see or in the future, or questions that you might have, and I will try to be as available as possible. Thank you.